we need to be careful what direction things go in, because it could be in the heat of the moment. People, I mean, remember in the riots just a couple, like 4 months ago, whenever it was, in London, you know, people were saying, bring in the army, bring in martial law, you know, and I just thought, blimey, you know, that's who would have thought it? You know, all you need is a few teenagers burning a few buildings down and running riot, and suddenly you've got the whole country calling for martial law. Oh, that's clever. Yeah, let's just call for our own further enslavement and our own further tyranny, because believe you me, if the army gets on the streets and the martial law is cracked down and all our civil liberties are forsaken, they're not going to be fussy about, you know, who the martial law applies to, or who the enemy is. We'll all be guilty until proven innocent. We'll all be suspects. We'll all be potential terrorists. It's all very well calling for an end to capitalism, but that is kind of just scratching the surface of what all the deeper problems are in the country, in society. And remember, one of my favourite sayings is, you can't change the world if you can't change yourself first. It's about you know, respecting life, and not just using life. And I think that also comes to the root of the problem that we have in this country and in society in general. Purely using life as if it was just a means to an end. I think it's a problem that we have, not just in terms of treating our farm animals, but also in treating each other, because we tend to treat each other with very little respect these days, just as the politicians are very disrespectful to each other. You only have to watch the live debates that they have in Westminster, and they're really just rude and discourteous and ungracious, and they're like giggling and little schoolboys. You just think, grow up, you know, this is like a serious thing, running the country, and you're just giggling and making snide remarks about each other. And likewise, it filters down into the society that we live in, and people tend to be very much on their guard. There's very much a feeling of suspicion. I mean, where I live, it's very local and small little village community, so I'm used to, if I walk past someone, I say hello and smile, and that's kind of normal where I live, and people smile back and say hello, and usually we'll get into a long chat and walk together for whichever direction we're going, and, you know, have a pleasant discussion about whatever, X, Y and Z. And sometimes we won't even get each other's names, but, you know, it's that human contact and friendliness. And then I go up to London and say hello to people in the street, and they look at me like I'm crazy. Like, you know, why has this girl just said hello to me? You know, what does she want? Is she going to mug me or something? Or, you know, what kind of weirdo says hello to someone in the street? So I think for the most part, I think it's a real shame that we've lost those courtesies. And so that's another thing that I would say. So I'd say you'd have to reform the entire political system and make it entirely transparent. And because I think that transparency is one of the solutions to most of the corruption and the problems, therefore, in the world. The amount of stuff that goes on I mean, obviously I don't even know most of the stuff that goes on, but, you know, I've read about and I've heard from insiders and things like that about things that go on. And, you know, the general public, for the most part, are incredibly naive. And I don't mean that in a kind of condescending way, but when I talk to people, they sort of, oh, well, you know, they wouldn't do such a thing. Or, you know, when you're talking about, say, corruption in the judicial system, which obviously we all know goes on, and, you know, you only have to think of things like the Holly Grigg case, where it was just high level sort of child abuse and occult sort of satanic ritual abuse going on of children, and the same with the Franklin scandal, which I watched a documentary about the other day, and it's you know, just confirms my belief that the entire system, the entire people who staff that system, you know, the politicians, the judges, the police, they just all need to go, pretty much, and start again from scratch. Because anyone who is, I'm not saying that they're all guilty of child abuse, for example, or corruption or bribery or whatever, but anyone who helps to cover up or helps to anyone who denies justice or who helps to cover up, or through omission, because omission of the truth is also a lie, anyone who assists in this way of covering up the guilty, whether it's a system or whether it's people, then they are equally guilty. So in my view, that's something that would need to be totally changed. Create an entirely transparent system. Because, I mean, think about it. If everything was totally transparent and we knew exactly where funds were going and to who, and what papers were being written and what was being done, and all the cases and everything that was going on that gets covered up or that gets done behind closed doors, it would be a different world, because everything boils down to the truth. And I spoke earlier about respect for life, but that's synonymous also with respect for the truth. And I think if I was going to say what would I want, if we know that the power elite we know that the ruling elite are planning their new world order, but if we were going to have an alternative new world order, if we were going to create and evolve into a more enlightened sort of society or community or whatever you want to call it, I would say the two most important tenets would be to have respect for the truth and respect for life. Honour the truth, honour life. Because if you think about everything in your life, what is it that's ever hurt you? It's always been when someone hasn't respected the truth or respected your life. And by respecting the truth, that means that you don't have lies, you don't have ulterior motives, you don't have corruption. You know, think about it. Most people lie because they know they can get away with it. And it's the same with politicians. And it doesn't matter if you try to tell them that they're lying, they will deny it, because in their head, they are right in their head. Well, they're not right in their head, but you know what I mean. And I think it's the same with a lot of the people in the world who are ruling the world, ruling the countries, people who are the top dogs in various financial and corporate interests and companies, places. These are the people who they convince themselves of their lies, and it's they won't believe the truth, even if it smacked them in the face. They still won't admit it. They won't admit it. And there's a certain amount of pride in that, because people, once you get so deep into your lies, it takes a massive amount of courage and fortitude and humility to stand up and say, I was wrong, I've lied. Another thing, humility. I would say if there was going to be something that we should bring back, or if there was something that we should rediscover, if we were to evolve as a society, so I think these are just my thoughts, really, and my concerns, because if the ruling elite know that people are waking up, and that also people are getting more desperate because living standards are falling and prices are rising and wages are falling and jobs are becoming hard to come by. So, you know, people are starting to see that something's wrong in the system, which means pretty soon the cookie will crumble. Pretty soon that everything will come to a head, and the people will demand an answer. And there's only so often that you can fool some of the people some of the time, but you can't fool all of the people all of the time. You know, I think that the recent thing in the UK with Cameron telling all of his party not to vote for the referendum, you know, that's enraged a lot of people. It's the same with everything, it's just continual hypocrisy. It's continual hypocrisy, and it's hypocrisy about the environment, it's hypocrisy about wars, it's hypocrisy about democracy, it's hypocrisy about religion, it's hypocrisy about finance, it's just hypocrisy about everything. Do as I say, not do as I do. Cameron likes standing up for all the so-called rebels in Libya and wherever else in the Middle East. But when it comes to democracy, or when it comes to protesters on his own doorstep, in his own country, in his own city, in his own constituency, suddenly he doesn't like it. So that's all my thoughts for today. It's probably enough. I'd be amazed if you haven't got to the end of this video, to be honest. So, I guess I should have put something nice on, but I'm wearing my painty clothes because I've been painting. And it's great because I can just get really messy and get my paint all over me. And I'm going to do some more tomorrow. Adios, hasta luego, a tout à l'heure, goodbye.